Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Midsummer Scream. Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood is the heavy hitter when it comes to movie-based haunted attractions that are both stunning and terrifying. What evil lurks at the top of the hill this year? Let's find out together, shall we? Please welcome to the stage Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood Art Director, Chris Williams. And Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood Creative Director, John Murdy.
Good afternoon. How are you guys doing? I'm John Murdy. I'm creative director, executive producer of Halloween Horror Nights.
I'm Chris Williams. I'm head art director of Halloween Horror Nights. Thanks for coming. Thanks for supporting us too. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys.
So today what we're going to do is we're going to give a little sneak peek of some of the things you can expect to see at Halloween Horror Nights 2017. I'm assuming a lot of you guys have been to the event, right? How many of you guys have been to Halloween Horror Nights?
You should more ask who hasn't.
Who hasn't been to Halloween Horror Nights?
Oh, you guys gotta get it.
Are you gonna come? Please.
Thank you.
Well, before we get into 2017, we're going to take a look back at Halloween Horror Nights 2016. Slide, please. How many of you guys were at Horror Nights last year? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you so much.
We're so lucky to have such dedicated, passionate fans like the fans of Halloween Horror Nights. Every year it kind of blows our minds to see the kind of support you guys give our event. We are truly grateful for that support, and at the end of our presentation today, I'm going to be asking an extremely difficult trivia question, and we're going to be giving away some front-of-line tickets to Horror Nights 2017, and an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour with the creators, which I think is us, Halloween Horror Nights. So keep that in the back of your mind. First of all, I recently on Twitter, I asked fans to submit questions that we would answer for you live on stage today. So we're going to start with one of those questions. Next slide. Question is, how did you and Chris meet from Nick Ingold at Nickish Kid 1? Do you remember that? It was a long time ago.
Yes. We were working on a show together, actually, with SES. I came to Universal in the mid-90s, actually, to come in and work on Halloween at that time, during that 5-year run. So I was hired by the entertainment department, and kind of within what produced a little bit, the creative department saw that and started to bring me into art direct stuff, and then that's when I actually met John in...
Yeah, I was with Universal Creative, actually, which is like the equivalent of Imagineering at Disney. So I was designing and producing rides and shows and attractions. And I was working on a project called Special Effects Stages. And do you remember the old Special Effects stage where a Transformer? Yeah. And they mentioned to me that there was an art director at the park named Chris Williams. that they wanted to hook me up with. And pretty quickly I realized that we were pretty much the same person.
You know, in John's office, had like dual offices because I had one in entertainment and then also one in creative downstairs. But you know, in John's office in the back, behind his desk, I remember that he had, and he still has it, this huge poster of Frankenstein.
Poster, the Belgian version of the Frankenstein poster.
And that's before I had met him. And I'm like, who is this guy? That, you know, behind him is just this massive picture of Frankenstein, and I had no idea who he was, but which we worked together, and that show ended up to be really actually successful, actually.
I think I have a picture if you click the next slide. Okay. This is right when we were opening special effects stages. This is the second set of it called the Creature Factory. And over the years, you know, like Chris mentioned, I had this poster of Frankenstein. You know, a lot of times, you know, we've accumulated a lot after this is our 12th year of doing Horror Nights. And Pat McGee Effects, he does a lot of our creatures, and he did The Exorcist with us last year. One day he just showed up and he's like, hey, I made you a Reagan. And it was that version of Reagan where she's like sitting on the bed, like giggling right after the priest dies. And as some of you guys know, I've been kind of living in two countries the last year between Ireland and the United States, going back and forth. So I didn't really have any time to deal with it, so I just kind of shoved it into the corner of my office and left. And I was gone for a couple of weeks. And when I came back, there was a note from the cleaning staff. It said, we're never gonna go in your office ever, you know, unless you do something with that, you know, possessed girl in the corner.
So John's office is completely filthy now, and everything's all piled up.
Let's go ahead and click the next slide. This follow-up question also from Nick Ingold. As a kid, could you have seen this as a career for you in the future? How many of you guys actually aspire to do something like this? Okay, cool.
Yeah, I aspire too. But honestly, it kind of didn't exist. A lot of the home haunts were home haunts and also campus life haunts, which were...
Does anybody remember campus life haunthouses? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so, you know, those were the ones that, you know, and also like high school ones as well that I attended when I was younger, but, you know, something like this didn't really exist, so really my focus was on to be like a makeup effects artist. I really wanted to be like a Dick Smith. I followed Dick Smith.
Did you have Dick Smith's horror makeup?
Yeah, I did as well. I got that like for a Christmas, like the best Christmas gift I could ever receive. And you know, that was the direction I was actually heading, actually. But you know, how things happen and you just veer off a little bit. And I started heading into this direction of more of a career of Halloween event design. And that's where this really has taken.
If you can click to the next slide. So basically, I rated my parents' family albums. You know, I saw Frankenstein when I was 4 years old. There's a picture of me in the lower corner where I've got like the Aurora monster models and the cake says 4. That's my 4th birthday. Some of those pictures up there are actually home haunts I did as a kid, which I'm sure these days you guys would smoke me. But my first haunted house I ever did in 1977 was Star Wars themed. That's me playing a Tusken Raider with a broom, I think, a broom handle, and my brother C-3PO. But I came to Universal as a young kid. You see that awkward picture of me holding the Wolfman's hand with those groovy 60s pants. That's the way my parents dressed us back then. You know, I grew up loving the Universal monster movies, and then when I realized you could come to Universal and you could actually meet the monsters, that was like a dream come true. The image where I have that makeup on my face, that was an old store that used to be in Universal where they would do live makeup demonstrations back in the days when we had the Castle Dracula attraction and Man of a Thousand Faces, which is now where our special effects show is on the top deck. But I actually got made up like that in the park, and I can tell that's 77 because I'm wearing a powder blue iron-on decal Chewbacca shirt. And they just let me walk around the park. So the times have changed. I was walking around the park and like all these tourists were coming up to my parents and yelling at them. You're like, oh my God, take that child to first aid, you know. But as a kid, that was like the best day of my life. So after, doing home lots with my parents, eventually I started at Universal as a tour guide in 1989, and kind of quickly figured out that there was a creative department. I started there as a PA, worked my way up as a coordinator, then became they realized I could write, so I was a show writer, and then that's roughly around the time I met Chris, because I was writing the special effects show. And then after working for Creative for years and years and years, right after I finished the Mummy ride here in Hollywood, I got a call. Thank you, the Mummy ride. Still around. I got a call from our then general manager that they wanted to bring back Halloween Horror Nights. And they had been, the park hadn't done it for a number of years. And I knew, that's when I remembered Chris. And I went, oh yeah, I know the guy who's the art director of that. And I'd been through a lot of his mazes, and I thought they were excellent. So I really quickly decided to come back to LA and work with Chris to bring Halloween Horror Nights back to Hollywood. That was 2006. And here we are 12 years later. All right, can we have the next slide? So let's get into a little sneak peek of some of the things you guys can experience at the event this year. If you click the next slide, I think we just made an announcement a couple days ago. And we got a little video that goes along with this announcement, so go ahead and run that. We'll click the next slide. Here you go.
What, you never saw a guy with a chainsaw hand before?
So, we actually have a bit of history with Evil Dead. I mean, personally, Evil Dead 2 is one of my favorite horror movies of all time.
Mine as well.
Chris and I are big Evil Dead fans, so we got a chance in 2013 to do the remake of Evil Dead. So up on the screen, that's an image from our maze. That's the cabin that we built back in 2013. If you go ahead and click the slide, we got to do, the entire cabin. How many of you guys went through that maze in 2013? Okay, quite a few of you. Go ahead and click the slide. This is one of my favorite makeups. Maybe Chris could explain it real quick. Do you remember this in the remake movie where the girl slits her tongue with a razor? It's really nasty.
Yeah.
Chris had a genius idea.
How we did this actually was an actual silicone slit tongue, and on the back side of that was essentially like a mouth guard that she's wearing in her mouth the whole time. So she comes on set with this tongue sticking out of her mouth essentially, and then when she comes on actually to location where she takes her rubber utility knife and actually cuts her tongue, she's within light. So that's where the really reveal is. She's in darkness right prior to that. And so that was really gruesome. It worked out really well for us. It was something that they could repeat 60,000 times. As well as you can tell, we jumped into contacts this year as well. So we were doing contacts, and also, if you know a little bit about makeup, we were doing prosthetic transfers actually to make burn three-dimensional looks, and that's something that we hadn't done before. But we did that actually through Larry Bones of Boneyard Effects at that time, actually. So that was just an overall really cool makeup for Mia in our Evil Dead.
And if you click the next slide, this is another one of my favorite makeups. There's a scene in the movie where this girl has fun with a nail gun. And she's got all these nails sticking out of her face. So just another one, and again, that's with prosthetic makeup as well. And go ahead and click the next slide. This was an effect. A lot of times when we watch movies, and Chris and I have to translate what we see up on the screen into a live experience, it's really difficult because in a movie I always say, you can do as many takes as you want. We'll talk about The Shining later. I mean, some of those takes in that movie, Cooper did over 100 takes. We don't get that luxury in Horror Nights. It's live. We always say it's a new show every 10 seconds. So we have to make things that are very short, repeatable, and can be done all night long, and that our actors also feel comfortable doing. So if you go ahead and click the slide, this is the concept drawing for the scene where Mia jumps on top of another girl and vomits blood all over her. Go ahead and click. But we wanted that to happen so you could see the vomiting happen, but then we knew that everybody would do this, you know, they would just stand there and stare at it. So we wanted an ability for the actress in the scene to shoo away the people that didn't want to leave the set by turning the Deadite's head sideways and blasting the guest with what they think is blood. So go ahead and click the slide. So do you remember this? When we were doing R&D on this?
Yeah, yeah, we have the victim underneath, and then we have Mia above her, but we had her on actually a hinge so that she could rotate up actually. The performer could get underneath her and then set her down on top of her. We tried to make the performer as comfortable as we can. You can tell there's a lot of water going on there, and you can see between the floorboards we had a gap. And so we could have water drain through the floor and then get it pumped out. So we're not flooding the maze, because we would end up doing that over an 8-hour period of time. Yes, we have. That's why we know that. That's why we put the reservoir in here. So we learned from our mistakes, actually.
And then if you click to the next slide, these are kind of just pictures people took as they were going through the maze, but that's how it looked on set. You saw the Deadite vomiting all over the girl, and then she could turn their head and blast them so that they continued on through their merry way through the maze. Go ahead and click the next slide. And then last, this was another gag we did last time we did Evil Dead, where Mia had to enter the scene with a chainsaw, trigger her own lighting and audio cue, and then shove the chainsaw into the Deadite's mouth, which is kind of asking an actress to do a lot, you know. So Chris designed this one as well.
Yeah, this was also in a scene that we had to make it look like it was raining blood, and that's what was going on at the end of the film. So, you know, we were scratching our head how to kind of do that and
Not staining everybody's clothes, you know.
Not staining and also that you can, you know, feel it, textural, you know, you feel the rain. So we actually put a few misters at the top, running with some rails at the top, and then heavy saturated red lighting, and also we painted everything in the scene red as well to help out. And with the combination of everything like that, it really turned out good, actually.
I think I have a picture if you hit the next slide. There you go.
Got it.
So that's the finished product. So if we go ahead and click the next slide.
Yeah.
So Ash vs. Evil Dead. How many of you guys are fans of Ash vs. Evil Dead? So this thing just started construction not that long ago.
No, it started construction, say, about 3 weeks ago. A week ago, Scenic jumped in, so we're just starting to paint a few things and such.
So I'm going to give you a few hints of things you can expect to see in the maze, a little sneak peek. Go ahead and click the slide. So if you know the show, you know Ash now, he's living in the Mossy Haven trailer park. So one of the challenges scenically we have to do is create a trailer. Yes, you could buy a trailer, but you have to get all those people through it, so it's not very practical to try to use a real trailer, so we have to create one. So this is out of the back lot. If you ride the tram, you'll start seeing this take shape. It's out where Krampus was last year on the metro area of the Universal back lot. If you go ahead and click the slide. Another place we wanted to go in the show, you know, Chris and I, we watch all the episodes of the first 2 seasons, and we try to cherry pick, you know, environments that we want you guys to experience when you go through the maze. We really love the idea that Ash comes back to Elk Grove, Michigan, which is his childhood home. So kind of the cool thing about this maze is you have a facade, which is out front with the trailer park, but as you go through the first section of the maze, you come to a whole other 2-story facade, and that's Ash's childhood house. Go ahead. And of course that means we get to take you into Ash's childhood room, which of course is just rife with a million pop culture references and all these Easter eggs from the Evil Dead franchise. And of course that means we're going to run into his sister Cheryl. Go ahead. And then of course it wouldn't be Evil Dead if we didn't take you to the cabin in the woods. So we're absolutely going to take you to the cabin in the woods. You're going to run into Amanda, who Ash briefly had a crush on in the show until she died a horrible, tragic death. Go ahead. We're going to take you into the fruit cellar with all those weird hanging, are those yams or gourds?
Yeah, those are gourds. I spent a lot of time in here the last couple of days, actually, in here, because they're working in here, and it's going to look exactly like the show. It's turning out awesome.
And one really exciting thing that, at least we're really excited about, because it harkens back to the other Evil Dead films, is, slide. Henrietta.
Boom.
So we're building a Henrietta right now.
Yes.
It's a pretty complicated little piece of puppetry, but you will get to encounter Henrietta as you did, not only in Ash vs. Evil Dead, but also from the films as well. And that's Ash vs. Evil Dead. Okay.
Woo!
Let's talk about The Shining. People always ask us, are there movies that you have wanted to do for a long time that you never got the chance to do? This would be one of them. For many years, we've considered, but also been, frankly, kind of terrified to do The Shining.
Oh yeah.
It's not an easy movie to translate into what we do. Again, especially when you think about everything we do has got to be a new show every 10 seconds. So if you click the next slide. I remember there was a lot of fans who said, "Where's the key art?" when we announced the maze. Here's the key art. You can finally see it. It's either going to be video next or a fan question, so go ahead and click. Oh, it's a fan question. Go ahead. This is from Ferdy Mouse, at Ferdy Mouse. What is the main concept for The Shining? Or in other words, what do you want fans to feel? So I'm going to ask Chris that question. What do you hope our fans will feel when they go through our maze?
Well, it's like what you were talking about, The Shining at the beginning. In my mind, it's like, and it's very hard to do this within a 5-minute walk to attraction, but a sense of dread. It's trying to get some suspense. Because that's what that movie, when you watch it, is about. But it's a big, slow burn. And it really is. But that's, in my mind, what we're trying to pull through this maze and help you feel that.
And I think that's really a difference in horror movies that were made in the 70s, and The Shining, of course, was 1980, so it's right in line with those films. As Chris referenced, it's a slow burn. I know plenty of people who couldn't even probably watch The Exorcist. They wouldn't get past the Iraq sequence. Actually, I've met many of these people. Where I've they ask me, "What's your scariest movie of all time?" I'm like, "Oh, The Exorcist. You got to watch it." And then they can't get past the first 20 minutes. Halloween's the same way, by the way. Halloween, nothing really happens for the last 15 minutes of the movie. So it's a challenging thing to instill that sense of dread of what's coming when you're creating a live experience. But there's also a piece of video we brought that was the announcement video for Shining that I think does a good job of explaining what we're hoping you will feel when you go through this maze. So if we could run the video. So, I didn't make this game with The first thing Chris and I do, obviously we know this movie really well. We've seen it a million times. But, we watch the movie together, we take copious notes, neither of us talk, it's really awkward. We're sitting in my office just going.
It's true.
We're the least fun people to watch horror movies with. We're awful. We just sit there and we write our little notes. But then we kind of,
very jaded.
Up on the big board in my office, we wrote a list. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And we wrote a list, the must-haves. And I'm actually going to ask you guys, because I want to see how good we were at designing this maze. If you were going to make a Shining maze, give me one thing that should be in it.
The bar. Woody elevator.
Okay, I heard Red Room, I heard a hedge maze.
Woody elevator.
The twins, the Grady twins.
The bar.
Elevator blood. Yes.
Ballroom.
And now it's all droning into one and I can't tell a damn thing you people are saying. But yeah, I mean, everything we just mentioned, yes, it's all in the maze. But from a scenic perspective, there's something I didn't hear you mention. Go ahead and click the next one. These are all a lot of things you said, the Grady twins, the red room door, the elevator of blood, here's Johnny, the hedge maze, but there's something else. Go ahead and click the next one.
That's what I just said.
What the hell just happened? How did Henrietta just came back on the screen? There we go. Okay, you can click the next one. Okay, good. Yeah. There we go. Okay, good. Thank you. The carpet. The carpet's actually really incredibly important, particularly scenically, because as Chris and I were sitting there writing all our notes, and this is something we don't normally do in a maze, we don't normally think about carpet, but you look at the scenic, and what do you have? You have stark white hallways, brown 1970s looking doors. Without the carpet, it's not the overlook.
Yeah. Look at the camera angle too that he had. It was really low. He's really keying on the carpet. And we felt that was super important and almost a character within itself, actually.
So, normally we don't think about what's below your feet, because typically when people are going through a maze, their POV is like here. It's not usually up, it's not usually down, it's always where's the next scare coming from, where's the next scare coming from. So we knew that it was really important that we had to reproduce this carpet. That is a behind the scenes image of us making little Danny there for the Grady twin scene. But if you click the next slide, this is what we're talking about. See the stark white hallway with that really geometrically shaped carpet, the really funky green and purple carpet, that's room 237. If you click the next slide. So this is the carpet we made.
Yeah, we're seeing that out on site. Yeah.
This is actually right when the maze started construction. So the first thing they did is they put down the carpet.
The carpet gets an applause. That's awesome.
I know. Well, there's more. I have more carpet pictures. I'm really into the carpet. Go ahead. Next picture.
Yes.
The one with purple, that's room 237. The other one is...
It's the hallway leading to the gold room, actually. So there's a hallway leading to it.
You go ahead and click the next one.
Yes.
Our designers get really into what they're doing. I'll let Chris introduce his team there.
On the left there, that's Matt Maldonado. He's one of my art directors, and he does most of my graphics, actually. He's kind of in charge of that. So you can tell our carpet is custom and custom printed, so Matt built that all by scratch, and we actually, it's very expensive to do, but we had that printed back east, actually, shipped out, and then seamed within. And
I'm going to do my house.
You know what? I know, it's really awesome, and you probably see Matt, he's probably wearing that shirt today out here somewhere. But nonetheless, on the other image, that's me and Matt, and then also Barbara Grill and Brandy Creason, who are two other designers and art directors that I have on my staff. So I have a small staff of people, but they're very knowledgeable and incredibly experienced.
And there's one other guy who's not in this picture. His name is Troy.
Yeah, Troy Zimmerman. Hey, if you ever see a guy cruising around, and he's probably out here wearing a fez, the long beard, that's Troy.
Troy looks like, if you, we're doing Roanoke, American Horror Story. You know all the colonial guys that march through the woods in American Horror Story in Roanoke with torches? Troy looks just like them. Because he is one of them. He's in American Horror Story. So
yes,
he's one of those guys. He's in a lot of different movies. Troy actually came to us as a character and worked for us as a character, and he got a chance to meet us. And we found out that he was a production designer. He had all these mad skills.
Yes.
So now he's part of our creative department.
Actually, Troy went to architecture school out at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. So he has an amazing education behind him, actually. So
And the crazy thing Troy did when we were doing The Shining, I should have taken a picture of this, but I didn't. But you know the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy? He got a big, like, you know, like you would drafting paper, like you would for the mazes.
it's 2 foot by 3 foot.
And just in tiny little script, by hand, he wrote that phrase
Yes.
thousands of times.
Yes.
By hand. You
Yeah,
know, and I walked into the office and I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with it, but it's bitching. But the cool thing and the reason I mentioned Troy is for people who aspire to do this, it is possible to, you know, literally came in the door as a performer and, you know, a few years later, he's designing the mazes with us, so it's pretty incredible. And that's the kind of talented people we get the opportunity to work with. Okay, next slide. We also have, you know, room 237. Very specific architectural look to it. If you click the next slide, that was me rummaging around in the maze the other day. We're kind of in the middle of finishing up Scenic. We just started props, so they haven't even dressed the bed yet, but I just poked my head in room 237 and took that picture. That's the bedroom part of room 237. If you click the next slide, this is the bathroom. Hasn't started props yet, but
Yeah, it's just a small little sliver of what's to come, guys. You can tell we're really working incredibly hard to make this look exactly like the film.
and of course, you know, you will see the old woman in the bath, of course. Next slide. Another challenging thing is just to create the architecture of the overlook. This is a still from the movie where Jack's cruising through the lobby. I took one picture of some of the columns that Chris has got going in the maze. On the next slide.
Yeah, you can tell. And you know what? We're not going to click back, but looking at that other image, you know, it's so big and broad and expansive. You know, it's really hard for us to pull that off within a maze, but you can see we're making big, bold columns, as well as, you know, the black and white photos from the 1920s. Even some of them are the a la 1920s New Year Eve type as well. But, you know, we're really trying to hit the coloration, that terracotta color, even at the very top with the Native American graphic band that we have throughout and wrapping around. So we're pulling it off. You guys are going to be happy with it.
Okay, next slide. And then, of course, you know, here's Johnny. When you think about it, that's a really difficult scene to do live in front of people. It's a guy chopping down a door that then has to, you know, stick his face in the door for the classic "Here's Johnny" line, has to reach through the door to try to get to the lock. Wendy has to slash it with a knife. So we knew we wanted to get all that action into the scene and compress it down so that you could do it. And of course, with pre-recorded audio, that means our performers are going to have to be really good at miming to the audio. So that it's all done to track. But we started doing this a couple of years ago when we did the Halloween maze, where we had Dr. Loomis shooting Michael Myers. And those performers were amazing. Like every single time I went in that room, you know, they were perfectly on cue. Michael, bang, 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 and they would react to it perfectly. So now we have to train our performers to do the same thing with The Shining. But it still didn't solve the problem of how do you deal with this axe smashing through the door. Chris had a really good idea. I think I have the drawing for it on the next slide. There we go.
Oh yeah, that's a concept drawing, and it was illustrated by Lucas Colshaw, but the concept is, you can see on the right side, it's just a simple pivot, and it's an axe on a simple pivot that has a gusset that's coming off the back of the door itself. And the performer, like what John had said, to the sound of the chopping, will just move this puppet forward. We have certain stops on it that he can only go so far forward, and it's a soft foam axe head. So, like what John said, there's really 4 things that's got to happen. He's got to chop, he's got to put his head up through the door, and he's got to reach down through, and then Wendy's going to hit his hand. So it's in a bathroom. There's probably 10 to 12 steps before you're out of the room, so that has got to happen all really quick and everything. Yeah.
And Chris mentioned this earlier, but we did the math on this years ago. If you're a performer in the scene, If you're playing Jack Torrance, you're going to do this 60,000 times. That's about the average of how many times a performer in Horror Nights will do whatever we block for them to do. So it's all about repetitive action that they can do over and over and over again. Okay, next slide. Oh, there's the axe. They were installing this on Friday, so I went down to play with it and monkey around with it and just try to put myself in the actor's position, which Chris and I will always do. If there's a creature, if there's somebody that's supposed to be, getting half eaten by La Llorona or whatever the creature is, the alien or thing, we'll put ourselves on the table, we'll crawl in.
John will do that most of the time. It depends on what it is before I crawl into something. He'll put on every single mask.
And sometimes perform.
Yeah, and it's so that, honestly, is so that he and we have an understanding of really what our performers are kind of getting into with, a certain mask, if it's small, if it's larger, or you guys know we do a lot of magic illusion gags, so we put performers within tables and really, precarious situations. So we want to know what they're getting into as well. And so
I think I'm banned from performing in our mazes now after Halloween because I just really wanted to be Michael Myers one night. I mean, who wouldn't, And it was the year we did that. Remember that scene with the mirrors? Woo! Where there were like multiple Michael Myers? Well, one night I went down to the wardrobe and got a Michael Myers mask and got a costume. But then I realized I have to drive through the movie studio on a golf cart dressed like Michael Myers, which was fun. It was a good joyride. And then, park somewhere where I could sneak in to the park and somehow get to the maze without everybody seeing me. So I took the mask off and stashed it and walked really quick, and I went backstage and I said, I'm going in. And they're like, what? I'm like, I'm going in. I'm going to be Michael. I'm going to be in the final scene. So I did it for like an hour, but I figured out in that scene that if you jumped out a certain way, you can make people go in circles. I had the whole audience crawling like in a circle, going, please God, how do we get out of here? And somebody came up and tapped on my shoulder and they're like, you got to stop that. So they haven't let me in a maze since then. Okay, next slide. Okay, so we're going to get into some more Q&A. This one is Shining related. Go ahead. Most creative things have a trial and error process. Does that apply to HHN? No, never. What are some errors and what did you learn from them? And this is from Some Thumb Doug Blackman. Actually, yes, this does apply to The Shining. If you click the next slide, I think I brought a drawing of the Grady scene. We had a concept, actually Chris's idea of how to do the Grady twins using Pepper's ghost illusion. But even though you have a concept, and even though we've done Pepper's Ghost a bunch, did it in Crimson Peak, done it in a bunch of different mazes, it doesn't mean it's going to work the way that you think it is, because it's all very specific to the math and the angle of the glass to get that illusion, that ghostly figure to look like it's actually in the space you want it to look like. So we built a full-size model of this in our warehouse. Right?
Yeah, we did. We did a little R&D, and the question is, essentially we learn from our mistakes, actually. I make a running list every year because, this is not a permanent attraction and we walk away. No, we've got it, the following year. So we don't want to repeat those kind of things. Sometimes we do. But we learn and we fix those. A lot of those are based on characters and how they're performing, as well as some scenic things. And here's this one of a Pepper's Ghost. So, and the way that we wanted the Pepper's Ghost is obviously we want you to see the girls, but then we want you to see them disappear and then the whole bloody scene. And that's what we're really trying to pull off. And that's how we felt that it was so important to do. Really, we built it full scale, and the drawing, that's a Troy Zimmerman drawing, in our warehouse, and we were wrong. We were wrong. So it's good that we
Meaning
put
that
this
the
together.
girls, when you saw the reflection of the ghost girls, they weren't even in the room. They were like behind the wall.
Yeah.
The spatial relationship was all wrong, so we had to redo it a couple of times.
Yeah, our theory on what we thought and regarding this Pepper's Ghost. And there's a couple layers to this Pepper's Ghost. It's just not making someone appear and disappear. which is very easy. There's a couple layers to this and some things to try to figure out. So basically off of that drawing, we had to retake and alter the design as well as in the field, because we were heading down that path of construction and had to make some alterations. So, you know, this plays out perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. Another fan question. Go ahead. Pre-sale tickets. Do you guys understand what's going on right now? Is everybody in the loop? We're doing a pre-sale. Seems to be a lot of confusion on Twitter. Let me give you an example. Next slide. This is a girl who I think was talking to me. Girl, we on the same boat. Tired face emoji. LOL. But I'm so confused about his reply to you. What's the special gift here? Crystal meth. Okay. Next slide. Let me try to explain it for you. I'm going to explain a few ticket things, because I know you guys always have ticket questions. I never answer them on Twitter. I'm going to answer them now. We are doing an exclusive pre-sale ticket right now. General admission only. We did not eliminate front of line. Okay? Everybody on Twitter, the minute we did this, they're like, oh my God, they took away the front of line pass. No, we didn't. We're doing an exclusive pre-sale just for the first 2 weeks of Horror Nights, just for general admission. And if you do it, you can choose a prize, and there's several prizes to choose from, and you can pick your prize. That's what the pre-sale is. Everybody capiche? Yeah. Okay, next one. General tickets. Next slide. When do front of line tickets go on sale, and is there going to be frequent fear passes? Next slide. Yes. General tickets will be on sale next week, actually Tuesday. Sunday, this week. Tickets go on sale this week. Tuesday. Frontline tickets will be on sale. Yes, frequent fear pass is coming back. There will be plenty of them. Buy them. They do go fast, but they will be available. And we will also be selling the day-night combo ticket. Okay. One more ticket-related question. Will we have VIP tickets for Hollywood this year? How many of you guys did the VIP tour back in the day? Hasn't been around for a couple of years, right? All right, let's roll video. It worked. So all you guys understand the power you have, okay? Because I know I would literally be walking down the street, not even at Universal, and people would yell and pass. Cars would be going by and they'd be like, "What happened to VIP?" It's not my job, you know. People would corner me in the park, you know. We communicated your desires, and RIP is back. So thank you guys for your passion. Thank you guys for constantly yelling at me on Twitter. It worked. RIP tickets will be going on sale as well, so you get it back. All right, next one. If you had to choose one makeup effect from any year, from any HHN Maze or Scare Zone, which one would you puke and why? This is from Alonso Zaragoza.
That's really tough.
It is tough. Next slide, because I'm going to eliminate creatures. Because we've done a lot of really cool creatures. There's the Freddy Snake, La Llorona, the Queen Alien from AVP, the Black Widow from Alice Cooper, of course American Werewolf from London. But Chris and I actually conferred, and we did have a favorite, traditional makeup. Go ahead, next one. And that is the Still Walking Devil from Welcome to Hell, Scare Zone back in 2009. And just real quickly, I'll jam through these. It was actually kind of, the concept was darkness, if you remember him from the movie Legend. Next one. This is Lucas Colshaw's drawing of the devil. If we go to the next one. This is Larry Bones when he was doing the makeup. This is his rough sculpt of that character. And then after you do the rough sculpt, you finesse it. So the next slide. That's all the detail. And then you also, next slide, have to do the chest and the horns and the beard. And you put all that together, and this is what you get. And that's him in the park. And still to this day, that's my favorite traditional makeup.
That's mine as well, absolutely. And that was early on when, 2009, and I think that was one of our first still performers on the street as well. Yeah. And I think that may be why it was so impactful with the chest piece and everything. Big, big horns.
And ever since that, we've been in love with still performers, so you'll see a whole bunch of them this year as well. Next slide. I'm pretty sure you answered this before, but are all Scare Zones original and new this year? From Ralph Chiarella. Next slide. Let's just show you. Is that cool? Scare Zones. So this is the top deck, Scare Zone for the park. The names are still being vetted through all the processes that have to go on to secure the names that we're going to call them. You know, for years I would always put a Z after everything. That wasn't just us being cute, because I know everybody thought, we were just being silly by putting it's to get something trademarked. Because everything is trademarked in this day and age. Everything is, So it's difficult to find names, come up with names that somebody else has a trademark for a book or a video game or a movie. So the names of these Scare Zones are still being finalized, but the entry one is kind of traditional Halloween.
Yes, very traditional Halloween.
We kind of wanted to go back to like that traditional Halloween look. This is the Chainsaw Brigade. We'll keep blasting through these. Next one. Some of the mask designs for our chainsaw performers. So basically all pumpkin-headed guys. Next one. Some more in the same vein.
So, in respect to casting, Scott Kleckner, our director of casting as well, who goes, and he does all the casting. I just wanted to mention him.
Since the very beginning. Next slide, please. We also have Scarecrow chainsaw performers. This is the look of some of those. This is all when you first come into the park. Next, please.
Yeah.
Brought a couple of blasts from the past back. The one with the teddy bear head was so bizarre and weird. It was in the Purge Gauntlet last year. But I just loved it. Every time I saw that character, I just smiled. I just thought he was strangely creepy. So we brought him back for the Scare Zone. And also a character called Bad Bunny that we had in the Toys Scare Zone years ago. We decided to bring back Bad Bunny and make him join the Scare Zone as well. Next one. Just some more of the characters that are going to be in the top deck Scare Zone. Next one. This one I really dig.
Oh, yeah.
Just a variation on your traditional kind of Halloween guy in a white sheet. Next one. Yeah. And then I think I have maybe a couple more from this Scare Zone. Go ahead.
You guys are so lucky to see all this, actually.
I didn't actually ask permission. I hope we weren't going to announce this separately in the press release. I just decided to announce it today. Is that okay? Okay. This is a still walker on the top deck, kind of traditional Halloween werewolf, and then a skeleton one after that. Yep. And then next slide, we've got so there's the walk to the back lot. You're actually walking through the backstage of the movie studio, basically. So there's that big tunnel you have to walk through. So Chris and I always have to come up with, working with a guy named Pat Quinn, who works on our team and does a lot of work on the Scare Zones and the decor in the park. We always have to come up with a theme, and we're like, well, it's a tunnel. It's pretty much not going to change being a tunnel, so it's got to be tunnel themed. So Pat came up with this idea, actually. It was like as if a bunch of, Con Edison workers or, guys were going to do some work in a tunnel, and there was a horrific gas leak that turned them all into hideous monsters. So this is one of those looks. I think I have another one on the next slide.
Yes.
This one, his gas mask is like literally melted to his face. But that's kind of the look of that particular Scare Zone. And then down at Metro Set, next slide, we're doing, the Scare Zone down there is going to be like urban hell. It's going to basically be New York City in the 1970s, essentially, because that's what New York was like. But it's going to be an urban setting, but it's going to be hell on earth. So there's all kinds of different characters we're designing for that Scare Zone. We're changing up the way that you go through it. It's going to be a little bit more like our Gauntlet was upstairs last year, a lot more twists and turns. This is the goat-legged fellow. I forget his name.
Goat Executioner.
Goat Executioner, there we go. Next one. This is his fellow executioners. Next one. One of our devil. This one is like he was made of like earth that had cracked, like everything is all, like his face was made out of mud or something and he cracked.
And
Next one.
We were looking at his costume, actually. A lot of these costumes that you see that have a lot of tatteredness and such, those are all custom costumes, built from scratch. You know, myself and Pat and John, we look at the textures that our costume people bring us as well. So, I mean, and honestly, what they do is they build one out of muslin that we can look at and see the form and then approve that, and then we will actually build the actual one. So there's a big process to this. So I know we usually don't talk a whole lot about costumes, but we have a big crew of people out in Glendale that are just cranking all these custom costumes out. So.
And if one thing I've learned working with Chris all these years is that he really knows shoes particularly well.
A little bit. You didn't talk about the Go-Go's?
Yeah,
No.
you always know like stuff that I would never know. No shoes. Man who knows shoes.
I buy my wife's shoes.
Do you?
Yeah.
How about these shoes?
Like heels.
Do you know I haven't worn white shoes since I was a freshman in high school? And I thought they were cool in they would have been like 81. And the football team during PE took my white shoes when I was out, you know, running laps around the, you know, football field and threw them in the shower. So I had to put them on.
Oh, so that sucks.
Have you ever been bullied in high school? This is like a high school bullied story. But do you know that scene in Creepshow where the guy buries him up to his neck and he drowns and then he comes back and you hear this?
Ted Danson.
I had to walk down the hall in high school because I was late for class because my clothes were all in the shower and it was like shh, shh, shh. So I finally got the courage to wear white shoes again. Totally has nothing to do with anything. Okay. Don't bully. All right, next slide. This is another still walker. This is the king of hell, basically. And then I think we have his queen.
Yes.
Okay. And that's going to be down on the Metro side. All right. Next slide. Okay. Trivia question time. Pretty good. 4 minutes to go.
Mm-hmm.
In my hot little hand, I have this. And it says, congratulations. Presuming you're going to actually get this right, which I'll give you a 50-50 chance on. You are invited to experience Universal Studios Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios Hollywood with 2 complimentary frontline tickets to the event and an exclusive behind-the-scenes maze tour with the creators of Halloween Horror Nights. Somebody's going to win this, I hope. If you don't get this right, I'm going to tear it into little pieces, and no one gets it.
It's tough. I didn't know it.
It's tough. This is a bad one. It's really hard. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to read the question, and then I'm going to pick somebody. Nobody shout it out, because if you shout it out, I'm going to tear it into little pieces, and nobody's going to get it, okay? It's going to be a Shining-related trivia question. It is tough, okay? Next slide. Do you all know who this guy is? This is Mr. Grady. He was the former caretaker of the Overlook Hotel in The Shining. Ready? Okay, let's go. Question. In The Shining, the former character of the Overlook Hotel, Mr. Grady, is mysteriously referred to by 2 different first names. What are they? Now, there's somebody way in the back right there. Your hand is up. I saw you first. Stand up. Tell me the 2 first names of Mr. Grady. You are absolutely right. Wow. Come on down. I'll make sure I get this to you. Oh my God. That is amazing.
That was awesome.
Okay. I honestly didn't think anybody was going to get that right. That's incredible. Congratulations. I'm going to give you this, all the information. Oh, great. Congratulations. We'll see you later at Halloween Horror Nights 2017. We'll be your behind the scenes tour. Lastly, what I wanted to say also is thank you guys so much for supporting this event and supporting Halloween Horror Nights. It means the world to us. We're very, 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 very lucky to have such dedicated, passionate fans. Chris and I have to do a couple interviews out in front of the lobby, but we'll hang out. If anybody wants to say hi, we are more than welcome to do whatever you require within limits. Okay? Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it.